Aaron Busto, Federal Highways.
Larry Manning, Town of Monument.
Tim Roberts, City of Colorado Springs.
Troy Chavez, El Paso County.
Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County.
Brian Vituli, City of Colorado Springs, Mountain Metro Transit. And to our audience, please.
Hi, Rob McDonald, Director of PPACG.
Matt Steiner with the Gazette.
Kyle Lissick, Southern Colorado Clean Cities.
Joe Hankey, HDR Engineering.
Liz Staten, HDR.
Rachel.
Hello, Mr. Chair.
Rachel Beck, PPACG.
Okay, and that was really fun, and now I'll turn it over to the real chair.
Good job, Brian.
For coming.
You exceeded expectations.
And I apologize for my tardiness. I hit construction, and even though I left early, it was longer than I expected. So thanks, Brian, for hanging in there for me. We have an agenda. Are there any changes, revisions, suggestions for any, Victoria?
I'd like to add an item for the development program nature investments discussion.
Any thoughts on where you are suggesting to add that?
We talked about this at the Central Front Range at our last meeting, and I know CDOT is anxious to get some input and some comments on it, and I think it was just a minor, silly oversight, so
And
I
we
did.
we have yesterday's Transportation Commission discussion about that, so.
So it sounds like I have a motion to add that. Craig, any thoughts on where to have that discussion strategically?
10B,
Okay. So I have a motion. Do I have a second to amend the agenda?
Second.
Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we have an agenda. Item number 3 is for public comments. These are for items not currently on the agenda. Anyone in our audience or anybody on the committee can request to come up and talk to us about anything that they have to say, anything that's not on the agenda.
Yes. Just an announcement or update that CDOT's announced their 2016 call for permanent water quality projects. We'll be sending this out to everybody on the TAC. The call for projects applications are due April 15th by close of business. So I'll be sending this out. They're looking and hoping to fund projects under $500,000, and this will be made available. And on the website, the link will provide you applications and all the guidance and everything else. So.
Thanks. Anybody else? Please come up.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. Seemed like the right place to come. I want to let you all know that Colorado Springs Utilities will be opening their second public compressed natural gas station.
I don't want to interrupt, but please, can you introduce yourself?
Sorry. Kyle Lissick with Southern Colorado Clean Cities. March 10th, 10 a.m. Please join us for the celebration. We've been working on this for a long time. It's finally coming to fruition. It was postponed from, I think it was today or yesterday, so I'm sorry if anybody did show up, but I hope not. But it is March 10th at 10 a.m. I have some handouts if you guys would like to come, just for something you could take with you. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
where is that station going to be, or is it? So.
Is that something you can scan and send out to everybody? You do? Okay, great. Thanks. Awesome. Wow, we never usually have public comments not on the agenda. Anybody else? All righty, moving on. Approval of the January 21st, 2016 meeting minutes. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review those. Are there any comments or changes? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. Y'all read it, right?
I've just read it. And under number 4, the Buy America waivers, we talked about the waiver program, but there were no changes to that. What was changed was the memo that dealt with manufactured product exemptions, not the waiver program. So if that could be clarified. That'd be great.
What would you like it to say?
Provided an overview of changes to the exempt clauses, including manufactured products and the 90% clause.
Okay?
And then the deadline for Buy America vehicle waivers was January. That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I'd move for approval with those changes included.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Dwayne. Any other further comment? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Great. Item number 5, Board of Directors report from the February 10th meeting.
It was a pretty short meeting transportation-wise. They approved transportation, or TIP Amendment number 11. We talked about some transportation legislation, and then we had a brief discussion about the proposed amendment to TIP policies to allow emergency relief funding to be amended administratively, and they had no qualms about that, so it should sail through. Other than that, it was other items were talked about. A lot of military and legislation was pretty long. So.
And I don't have my notes here with me, but they did vote to support a couple of the bills in the legislature right now,
Yep.
correct?
And I think we're 2 for 2. Well, we'll get that update here shortly.
Support and oppose, because they
Right.
suggested to oppose Senate Bill 11, I believe, which was the faster removal of the faster funding for transit. So,
I'll cover all that in my update.
thanks, Rachel. Awesome. Alrighty, so item number 6 is TIP policy, emergency relief funding regional policy. This is a review and recommend item. Craig Casper, Transportation Director.
And as we discussed last month, our TIP policies right now don't allow emergency relief funding to go in as an administrative modification, necessitating going through the whole committee and board process, when that's really not appropriate, given the what those projects have to go through to get selected in the first place. So per El Paso County's recommendation, we're proposing to add some language to our TIP policies. It's modified from what was in your memo because Aaron from Federal Highway clarified that some of the funding is not just through Federal Highway, it's through FEMA. So the proposed motion I would like is recommend that the Board of Directors add to the TIP amendment policy the following language. Funding from federal agencies classified as emergency relief can be added to the Transportation Improvement Program as an administrative modification. Just leave it, all the federal colors instead of just Federal Highway.
Now, I don't know from experience, but has it ever happened that it comes from state?
I don't know.
Yes. We have received emergency relief funding through from DOLA, through CBDDR, disaster recovery. So yes.
So maybe word that as state or
State and federal agencies. Yeah.
Okay.
Great point.
Okay, so right now it would be adding the language, funding from state and federal agencies classified as emergency relief can be added to the Transportation Improvement Program as an administrative modification.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I think the motion maker has to repeat this line for line.
Nuh-uh, I moved his.
Well, just for clarification, I'll read. I think the motion is recommend that the Board of Directors add to the TIP amendment policy the following language. Funding from the state and federal agencies' emergency relief can be added to the Transportation Improvement Program as an administrative modification.
Correct.
Alrighty. Any further discussion?
Quit picking on me, second chair.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
Sorry, you just got by on it, and I just thought of something else. This speaks of only adding. Is there ever cause that you would also be rearranging I mean, if you're months downstream within,
Well, yeah, ER funds,
Fixing
ER funds can
stuff.
only go for that project. You can't move them around.
okay.
So it's either use them for that or not, is sort of.
Exactly what the project was,
Oh, I see, okay. So it's not that there's
modifications or
funding to address a pool of, projects to fix emergency damage, okay.
I think I appreciate all the thought that went into this though, because I think the modifications that happen here will really help all the local agencies. And in fact, actually CDOT and any state agencies that have to go through the TIP, because I know CDOT receives these funds as well, so. Appreciate everybody and those modifications, so. I think we can move on to item number 7. It's the fiscal year 2019 to 2020.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, I thought we voted.
No, we voted.
We voted.
Yeah, we voted.
Did I say yes?
Yes. All right.
Never mind.
Sorry. Fiscal year 2019 to 2022 TIP application review update. This is a discussion item. Mr. Scott Phillips, Transportation Planner.
Thank you, Chair. This is just an update regarding the TIP process. And what this memo just reflect was that there were several projects that were not in our constrained financial plan for the RTP, and that should any of those projects be selected for the upcoming TIP, that there will be an additional process with regards to needing to balance out the fiscal constrained portion of the RTP to add and to take a project out to make room for any project that may not have been in the original RTP. That's just an update as it is. With that in mind, we do have our initial draft scores. Just wrapped them up, and I have them available for everybody to take back with you, review them, digest them. We're proposing that a workshop either be held on the 24th or the 26th of next week to discuss any of the projects that you guys would like to come back and have a conversation on the scoring. With that, I'm going to pass out the location map for each of the projects, as well as the draft score sheet, and it's also provided from highest score to lowest score, so for you guys to take a look at. And we're available. If you have questions regarding any of the information, please send us an email, contact us prior if you want to talk separately about it, and or if you want to have something added to the conversation at the workshop. And then with that, I'm going to pass this around, and that's about it.
I guess, and I'll follow on a little bit. One of the things we have to be cognizant of is what the 495303J, when our projects, we're going to have to identify, and I hope it's at the TIP level, not at the project level, the how the TIP investments reflect the priorities from the plan, make progress towards achieving the federal performance targets. And those federal performance targets, we've got a couple of them in draft form. There's a couple more likely to come out. We don't know what the state performance measures are going to be, and we obviously then haven't established our regional performance targets. So while we're going through this, the years of project that we're selecting the funding for now, we need to make sure that we can, and I'll quote this, describe the effect of the projects on achieving the performance targets. And so that will be a topic of ongoing conversation as those targets come down from the feds, are potentially modified at the state level, and then reviewed and acted on at the regional level also. So that'll be something to have future conversations about.
Craig, I know that you had a schedule, and I thought that we had to be voting on this month or next month. So my question is, this meeting that we're going to have, the workshop, does it need to be a fully publicized meeting for us to be able to vote? Are we expected to vote at this meeting? Or make a recommendation, I should say.
My hope, well, I don't know. Let me think about it for a second.
In relationship to meeting your schedule?
Right now, we had not planned on it being a voting meeting. We'd planned on the voting meeting being next month in March. But, I mean, I think let's keep it that way, and we may just there may be another meeting, we'll have to sit down and figure out, when, because the board will have to release it for public comment in May, is when they have to release for public comment, to adopt it in June. Or no, they have to have it.
April.
Yeah, they have to release it in April and adopt in May.
So we still have yet another meeting
Yeah.
prior to the board
So there's
meeting?
one more meeting before they
Okay.
have to release.
So it truly can be a workshop.
Yep, that's,
Okay.
And on that, if you guys could let us know what your schedules are and what's the best time, what time works for you. The 24th, we do have CAC in the afternoon, so it would have to be in the morning on the 24th. The 26th is open, so either or, and as soon as we can hear back from you, it'd be great so we can get everything scheduled.
Could you send out a doodle poll for
What?
everybody? A doodle poll
Yeah,
instead of everybody
sure.
yeah, that's,
flying back to you?
Yeah.
Can you also send this to us electronically as well?
Sure, certainly.
My old eyes can't read this tiny little.
I know, it's
And these are in order?
they are in order with regards to high score to low score.
Do you have it broken out by funding source also, spreadsheet? On the funding category, do you have that broken out also?
We can.
It's-
I'll pull it out.
yeah,
It's on there, but
Is it a different, yeah, I see it on there, but do you have a different tab with Metro and TAP on your spreadsheet?
oh, set aside. No, I haven't broken it out like that, but I can.
It's okay.
It's not a problem.
I can-
It's not a problem.
All right.
And are we doing pools again? Like planning study pools and bridge pools and
we had,
congestion pools like we did with the last two?
we had not done that in the call, but that's something that can be definitely considered as we go through.
Okay, the important question, where's the line?
There's about $22 million in Metro and about,
It's about almost, it's 1.89 million in TAP. So it's approximately $23 million on the table.
so that would go down about halfway down through 30th Street, if my math is correct.
But you're combining Metro and TAP, you'd have to
Right.
break
Yes.
that out.
That's, yeah, and we'll break it. I'll provide the.
Yeah, and then you have the question, because all the projects that are eligible for TAP are also eligible for Metro. Would you fund that if it scored high? And so, but those, that would be discussions for the workshop, and also any, score discussions on the scores, so.
So you said it could go halfway down through which?
The
30th Street.
30th Street. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 6th project.
This is a lot to take in for
Yeah.
everybody, I think.
That's
so,
why that's what we just handed out. We'll, if we can schedule a workshop.
any
All-
oth-
Just also, if you recall, we had to rationalize some of the funding with the 2016 and 19 adoption. We had some projects that got money in 19, and they're in 16 or 17 to handle the cost overruns, and you all had a meeting and jockeyed some of those around. We are really close to putting those into a tip format to send out, and so maybe at the end of the workshop, we can have, confirm those, or we'll send them out, and the city, county, and I think it was Manitou were the three that actually had projects moving around. We can have a meeting to make sure that everything's copacetic per what you'd worked out with that. So,
Great.
thank you.
Any other further questions or discussions for PPACG staff on this item? So you're going to send out hopefully a doodle poll.
Yes.
And we'll get that scheduled. Thanks. And in the interim, if there's any questions, contact yourself or Craig. Great. Any other Questions? Alrighty. Next item is the fiscal year 2016 to 2019 TIP Administrative Modification Number 14.
This is just an informational item. MMT contacted us and requested that we roll forward 2013 FTA 5304 and FY14 faster funds totaling, and a local match totaling $190,000. These funds were previously programmed in the 13 TIP, and they are rolled forward to the new existing 16 TIP. Just informational. It has been processed and has been added to the TIP. It's good to go.
Thank you.
And just as a rider on this, as we're developing the new TIP, I will be reaching out to everybody and requesting a list of their projects they will be needing to roll forward for the new TIP. And as part of that, we need to know what you've obligated and not obligated. If you have a project that's $1 million and you've already obligated $200,000, I need to know it's $800,000. We cannot roll over 100% of the funds if some of those funds have been obligated. So, and there'll be a detail. I'll provide a detailed request for everybody.
Great. That was just an informational item, so does anybody else have any questions or concerns? Anything from the audience?
I will just add that this project just kicked off last week. This is a relocation study for our new downtown transit station, and we hope to have a few sites identified by early spring, and then a final preferred site by July or August.
I'm just curious, I think we know
How many
that-
studies we've done in the past?
Well, are the results of those hopefully going to feed into, is that a starting place for this
Yeah,
study?
the consultants are reviewing all the past studies, and some of those properties aren't going to be available anymore, and there are new ones that have popped up recently, so they're going to do a scan of what was looked at in the past, and that will be the starting point. So they won't waste time on sites that aren't
Right.
available anymore. Yep.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you. Item number 9, fiscal year 2016 TIP project status report. This is another informational item. Mr. Phillips.
Yes, as previously discussed last month, we provided a listing of our existing TIP for projects programmed in FY16. Forward that out to everybody on the TAC and requested that you provide a status update as per TIP policies. CDOT was kind enough to also provide a listing of all their projects. I have it broken down by jurisdiction based on the information provided in this document. So there may be, it might say City of Colorado Springs as a sponsor, but CDOT might be doing the projects. If you don't have information, that's great, but it does provide you an opportunity to provide additional input on projects on this list. This will be provided to everybody, and if you guys could just get it back to us so we could move forward and give an update to the Board of Directors with regards to the status of projects programmed in this fiscal year.
Any questions, comments for Scott? Alrighty. Anything from our audience? Smiles from our audience. Okay. Item number 10 is the 2016 state legislation tracking items. This is a discussion item, and Ms. Beck, our Policy and Communications Manager for PPACG.
Good afternoon, Rachel Beck, Policy and Communication Manager. You should have all gotten the latest legislation tracker by email on Friday, and gotten scrolling to it. Thank you. I'll just go through some updates on bills that we have taken formal positions on, and then if there are any others that you want to talk about, we can certainly do that. There's 2 bills that the board had previously voted to support. House 1018, which concerns the STAC advising the Transportation Commission directly. And that one has moved out of committee and to the Senate floor, but hasn't been voted on yet. House 1031, which would study modifying the Transportation Commission district makeup, is also out of committee. And Commissioner Norm Steen on our board and our staff representative actually went and testified at that hearing and said that it went well. The board also did, as Jennifer mentioned, vote to support 2 additional bills. The first is House 1061, which is the one that we talked about, that would emphasize the needs of military installations in the state planning process. And then the second is House Bill 1138, and that is new since our last meeting. This was one that we've seen before. It concerns transferring money from the general fund into the Highway Users Trust Fund. So you're all familiar with that funding formula. And as you know, if the general fund revenues are over a certain amount, then there's an automatic transfer of some of that money to transportation projects or into that Highway Users Trust Fund. But if there's too much extra money and we go into a Tabor refund situation, then there is no transfer. So what this bill proposes is that for any year that there isn't a transfer, the window to do so would be extended so that there's a full 5 years of transfers. So that bill is scheduled for a hearing at the end of this month, but it is in the Kill Committee, and it didn't make it very far last year. So we're not too optimistic about that one. But as I said, the board did vote to support it anyway. Questions or comments on that one, since we haven't talked about that one yet? Okay, on to the ones that we have opposed. The board did take formal positions at their last meeting to oppose Senate Bills 11 and 30. 11 is the one that proposed to repeal the transfers of faster funds specifically to transit projects. And that was in hearing yesterday and was killed largely on a party line vote, with one exception. Representative Terry Carver, who a number of us here in the room have been working with for some time, voted to kill the bill, and I think that has a lot to do with the relationships that she's built with a lot of us in this area and the information that various of us provided to her. So you can all pat yourselves on the back and thank her next time that you see her. Did you want to add anything on that one, Brian, or anybody else?
No, other than that, we're very pleased that happened.
Commissioner Steen did go and testify on that one, too, and he, I think, was very articulate. The other bill that the board decided to oppose was the motor vehicle weight violation surcharges, and Victoria, I know that's your favorite bill.
My favorite one to oppose,
Yes.
almost, with one exception.
That one did make it out of committee with some amendments. It looks like the link is not going to the amendment. So, if you'll indulge me, I'll pull it up real quick. Actually, I don't think I need to pull it up. I'll just tell you that what they added was an appropriation for the funds.
That's not good.
No.
No.
I got a lot of questions on that one, kind of along philosophical lines and about where the fees fare.
It's my understanding they go to the court. It's I want to say it's the victims and something assistance fund that goes to.
Oh.
I know it's not about the money for the road concerns. It's not about the money not coming to us or anything. The issue is that it makes it ridiculously cheap for large trucks to carry too much weight. A giant truck with a lot of weight on it can cause 2,000 times the damage to the road as a car does. So encouraging overweight vehicles is going to devastate our roads, affect our bottom lines, affect our citizens, have more potholes, all of those things. So really, from the public services side, our issue is that it encourages damage to our roads. We're not worried about where the fees go or that the fees are there. We just don't want to make it so cheap and so easy to overload your truck.
Well, if that one gets out of the Senate, we'll have another stab at it in the House committee, and maybe we'll be able to make those points a little better. I'm sorry, there was a third one that the board decided to oppose, and that one came up pretty quickly, so we haven't talked about that one in this group either. And that was introduced by Merrifield and proposed allowing motorcycles to drive between lanes, between cars, or on the shoulder. And the board opposed that for safety reasons. That one died in committee yesterday. So, a quick life and death on that one. And then two others I'll mention that we haven't taken positions on, but Bill, your favorite one about the off-road vehicles has not been scheduled for a hearing yet, so we'll keep an eye on that.
Well,
And then-
Woodland Park and Teller County are both tracking that one.
Good. And then everyone's favorite bill about slow-moving vehicles blocking traffic, I'm sorry to tell you, was postponed indefinitely. So we're all stuck behind the slow truck on that one. Questions or comments or any other bills that you'd like to discuss?
Is the board planning to take a position on Senate Bill 100?
Not that I know of.
While you're looking for that, thanks for the updates, because this is
Yes.
useful. This is a nice value added.
Thank you, I appreciate that. To answer your question, Victoria, no, not that I know of. You could certainly recommend that they do.
We'll chat later.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Bill, I think that's a good comment. I mentioned that to the board last month, that we hadn't been receiving these updates in the past, and I think it's been valuable, and I also think it was valuable for the board to, Rachel was able to communicate some of our concerns, and I think that was valuable to them as well. So I think it's all around a really great thing, and I know it takes a lot of time to track these things and be involved, so I think we appreciate Rachel's efforts there. Thanks, Rachel.
I can say she was even working at home on it in a snowy day. Weren't you?
Yeah.
Wiser than being on the roads on a snowy day.
Go. Any other further comments, questions about that? So thanks, Rachel. Item number 10A, our added item, the CDOT program development. This is a discussion item. Craig, you want to start us off?
I'll start. And Victoria mentioned yesterday about working on a priority project list, sort of a key. And we've been working, we sent the board priority projects to Region 2, and they've been working through that. In a sort of a parallel process, yesterday at the Transportation Commission, they started talking about Senate Bill 228. The new forecasts for Senate Bill 228, which is for strategic projects, calls for $200 million in 2016 and a little over $100 million in 2017. The first $200 million is already spoken for. The Transportation Commission said it's going to go to I-70, Central, I think is what they call it now, the reconstruction. But then what do they do about the extra $100 million? So they started with the old 228 list, but then recognizing that some things have changed, they're recommended taking two projects off of the 228 list. The first one is one in our area, the US 24 8th Street interchange. They said, let's take that off because with the Cimarron improvements, we don't really need that project so much anymore. And they also took off a project, C470 project in Greater Denver area. Then they added some projects also, including 3 projects in our area. They added, I-25 widening South Academy to Circle and Lake for $35 million. They added US 24 widening 8th Street to 31st Street for $55 million. And they added US 24 East widening Garrett Road to Stapleton Road for $28 million. So those three projects were added. And then they talked about the process they would go through to figure out which projects get the $100 million. And what they said is it's going to...
Can we be clear, they didn't include I-25 North?
Actually, it's already included.
It's already in there?
Yeah, it's item number 9.
I couldn't remember which
Yeah.
one, if it was on there. Okay.
Yeah, and so it's under item 9, Greater Denver Douglas Area Monument to Castle Rock, expand capacity with managed lanes for Monument to Castle Rock could be expanded further north based on the PEL outcomes. And that's a $270 million project with a $100 million request. So that they did include that one, which is one of our board priorities also. And then there are also, because there's a 10% for transit clause in 228, there are 3 projects in our area for transit also. The I-25 Monument Park and Ride, addition of a northbound park and ride slip ramp at the Monument Interchange. I-25 Monument Park and Ride expansion, expand the parking spaces from 100 to 240. And the Tejon Park and Ride expansion and reconstruction, add an additional 100 spaces to that site. So that's the transit portion of the 228. So that's the 228 list that the Transportation Commission is working with now. Going back to the parallel process is looking at the 10-year development program and then some priority projects and using our board's adopted priority project list and meshing that with the previous list that CDOT had been using. And that's still an ongoing process. I guess Region 2 missed a deadline on an update last month, and they hope to have corrected that this month. So the board's priority list should be incorporated now, should be, although we haven't seen it, in what the CDOT is working with for the potential high hospital fee, if that ever actually comes out, or there was something else. Oh, a potential 1 cent statewide sales tax, so that they would, the new list from our area would be used for that list of projects. And I'll keep following up with Michael and I don't know who else, whoever's putting that list together, to make sure that the board's priority list goes into that.
I wonder if you'd welcome just to, if I might provide a little bit more of the sort of the overarching basis for what we're referring to as the development program and then the 10-year development program and these lists. I want to make sure that you've heard it because I'm not sure you may have seen things in memo form, but you receive a lot, so it's worth talking about this. Just in terms of overall planning and what our regulations allow, everyone, regional transportation plans, metro transportation plans are developed, which provides longer-term visionary type of planning. And then the other document that partners with that and puts the real money to real projects is our STIP. That, of course, is based on expected funding and is limited to 4 years. Those are the only true technical, written in stone kind of documents that we have. What we recognize in DTD is that we are constantly having to come up with other lists. And in the process of having planning conversations both with the MPOs and the TPRs, lots of other projects and priorities get identified, but then they're not documented if they don't fit within that 4-year fiscally constrained STIP. So we have started basically a database called the development program, and we're keeping track now of projects identified by stakeholders throughout the entire state. And so that when there are questions or a new funding opportunity suddenly comes about, we're not starting afresh. We actually have lists of priority projects and improvements that have been identified already. So it's a very rough, size of list. Right now it has about $8 billion worth of projects identified, which is, again, these are all projects now beyond what we see funding for now, so it's a pretty big list. And we continue to work on that, as in we continue to work with, both rural and metro professionals like yourself to say, what belongs on this list. We're also then capturing information about those projects, such as if it's on a roadway and it's some sort of, let's say, safety improvement, we're going to be capturing safety-related data. Maybe we capture just roadway statistics. Maybe we capture, relative type of criteria type of information that would then be helpful when you have to pull some subset from this list. Let's say for a specific type of funding that is geared toward projects that qualify in a certain way. So now what Craig spoke about and what you hear the Transportation Commission talking about now is, all right, let's continue the conversation. Now we have this gigantic development program list, but let's identify a 10-year, meaning we're going to give it some constraint, and they're going to pull out about $2.5 billion worth of projects, that there will be some prioritization too. And that is largely what the conversation is about with the Transportation Commission, is how do we give some general prioritization to it? Now, before this causes alarm for any of you, realize that this is not a STIP, right? Nothing is in the STIP until it's decided in the same public fashion as anything else. But we believe that having this type of list available is very helpful when new opportunities arise, funding opportunities, that is. So there are several different funding opportunities that they're looking at now, and it should be helpful to us to have this list. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to keep track of what's going on. So we actually set up a web page just for the development program on the planning website. I could share that with you if you like. It's easy to find. If you just went to the CDOT website, search for planning, and go in to hit the projects link, you'll see the link for the development program. And there we're keeping the iterations of this list and the various lists that maybe come from it. So you can always keep track of that. And it's also give a description of what we're doing with this development program.
Great.
Okay, so it's about a $2.5 billion list for 10 years. Is there any that's statewide, is there any breakdown by region for that? Because one of the things I've noticed in looking is, like North Front Range put their whole $1.7 billion I-25 project in. We broke our Powers $1.9 billion project into lots of little projects, and then only a couple of those little projects went instead of the whole corridor.
Well, as always, regional equity is often a criteria that will show up on a list of other more technical criteria to selecting projects.
Okay, because right now,
So I
the
think
regional
that's
equity,
always-
because right now it is not regionally equitable by any stretch of the
And that's the
imagination.
kind of feedback that needs to be voiced. If you're wondering, where do we have our voice? Your voice is here, to me. Your voice is directly through STAC. However else. I mean, the same sort of.
Yeah, and there's some of the older, going back to the Heather OFMB times, there were some sort of guidelines as to about what proportion each region should get relative to the statewide total.
Right.
And we're not sniffing that right now for our area.
There is, I will say that the effort, particularly with the increasing sort of expectation for performance-based planning, which means you say, as you were just talking about in your tip requirement, if you're saying your projects are selected to further conditions of your road or further the measures on a certain measurement, performance measure, well, you're implying that you're going to get a little bit more data-driven in your decision-making and selection of projects. And to me, what that means is you can expect sometimes to, 1 year, regional equity may look terrible, and the next year it favors, you're more favored, right?
Right.
So
But over 10 years, 10 years should be a good time where it all
Yeah.
sort of balances out.
I would agree, just based on, the life of assets and how they degrade, it should balance out. I'm no
Yeah.
expert to have some sort of statistical.
Are there performance criteria being used to whittle the $8 billion list down to the $2.5 billion list? Is there some sort of evaluation criteria, performance measures that are going to do that?
I don't have them off the top of my head unless I happen to bring one. There was you will find it in the memo to the Transportation Commission from January 28 was the
Okay.
last meeting. And that's posted on that development program page. You'll find
Could
that
you send
memo.
that out?
In there was a first proposed, here are some criteria to be considered. It wasn't, these are the criteria, it was,
Something to look
these
at.
are the ones we're looking at. And it's not different really from the kind of criteria we've talked about even in the first SB 228 list, so.
Okay.
Victoria?
In my look at the list, it looks like CDOT has put most of our higher priority projects on the list, so thank you for that. There are a couple on after we finish these higher ones, we'd like to work on these other ones. There's a couple of those other ones on the list. But if we are looking at equity and we need an additional project, do you have a suggestion, Craig, as to which additional project we'd like to see on the list?
Yeah, that's something the TAC, I think, should make a recommendation to the board and let the board, it's.
And And Darren, this is for you, but I'll say State Highway 94.
I believe Mark, Andrew, did you speak to Mark yesterday? And his thought was he wanted to sit down with you to kind of figure
Yeah.
this out together, too.
Yep. And he called again today and said he wouldn't be able to make it today, because he had planned on coming today, but something came up, so.
I mean, that's your best avenue, is to work through Wendy, Mark, Andrew, to help make sure those are identified. I could add things, too. I can forward.
And some of it, I guess, is what are the rules? Because when you see, like, projects that don't have environmental clearance getting put in, whole corridors, almost the wish getting put in, and then we're stuck with
Yeah.
our cleared projects being cut into little tiny pieces instead of doing the whole corridor at once.
Well, you'll actually find there to be a lot of the basis for that larger list are actually projects identified by completed environmental studies. So they work. There's a lot of work done to try to identify all the environmental studies done and what projects they identify, because we don't necessarily just bring those out. We usually just wait to see what different entities recommend as opposed to what is actually ready.
Yep.
So I think readiness is
Yeah, because we've got
all
I-25.
the criteria.
We've got the I-25 that we still haven't completed that. We've got Powers Boulevard, we haven't completed that, and US 24 West. So those are three big corridors that are cleared. And
And I think that development program captures all of those. So if you
Okay.
see that it hasn't, some of you that probably understand those environmental documents better.
Which one of the Powers projects didn't make it on?
onto the 228 list.
No, onto the program development list.
I think they're all on there in some level, or at least they should. What the board's saying should include all of them. And so that's what we got to figure out is what's actually in the list versus what the board, because the board said do it all. Some do this before this, but all of it needs to be done.
Michael, am I hearing that CDOT has a list of statewide all of the environmentally cleared corridors? Is there a list out there?
It's a really good question. If that's, I'm not sure that it is.
It'd be good to see.
It is the requirement to do so. I think requires talking to a lot of different people who work in different regions and fields to get it together. But I'll ask. I'll find out if there is some. I've not seen such thing. What I saw was that there had to be somewhat of a concerted effort in outreach to a number of people to kind of get it all together and identify them, including the region engineering staff and environmental planning branch folks.
And
Right.
in looking at the 228, going back to 228, and the criteria that they're going to use to evaluate those projects, what 228 projects are supposed to do, and I'll just read it: reduce congestion, increase reliability, improve connections, and affect economic vitality by serving freight, agriculture, energy, and recreation. I don't see the military in there, and the military brings more money to the state than recreation does. Also, what I call it the tyranny of large projects. If this is based on just where you get the most reduction in congestion, the bigger the project, the more you're going to reduce, but that's not a cost effective. There's two smaller projects might get you a more bang for the buck than one big congestion reducing project. I'm just curious how they're going to evaluate reducing congestion, is because you start throwing money and eventually, hey, this is the best because we spent, more money on it, but it's not an efficient or effective.
And of course, there's weighting to that particular
Right.
criteria relative to the rest too.
So yeah, if you could just let them know that we'd like to see military listed on there as economic vitality, because it does bring, billions to the state every year. So, thank you.
Victoria?
Okay, given a quick look of what is in here and then what's on our list, it looks like Highway 67 didn't make it. Highway 83, traffic improvements, El Paso to Douglas County line, didn't make it. Highway 85 widening, Comanche to Mesa Ridge, did not make it. State Highway 94 did not. and the US 24 West bypass study did not make it. So I guess if we want to make a recommendation and ask that CDOT, or wait, maybe let me rephrase, that ask that the board ask CDOT to add a couple of projects. I'm going to throw out Highway 94 again for our access to Shreveport. Does anybody else want to add something
Well,
to that
I was
list?
going to bring it up later, but we just signed a contract to do the final design for 67. The city's investing in that, and we received comments back from CDOT, so that's going to be a shovel project in a few months. And, you know, we're doing all the work on the front end, hoping that, and it's a drainage disaster, so. But I like your idea. Start with 67 and 94, okay. Go in numerical order.
Okay. Anybody else want to chime in on the list?
Doesn't surprise me that Highway 85 is ignored again, but hey, it's a bottleneck in the system, and it supports Fort Carson, so City Fountain would like to see that added.
I'm guessing our complete recommendation should include all of the projects that are on the priority
Board
list
list,
that
yep.
from the board.
True, but one of them is at $81 million, and I don't see it happening. Personally, I'd rather give them a list that is addable than to give them a list that is a pipe dream. So with those three projects, we're looking at adding only $10 million to the list, which is a very reasonable request for as large as our region is and as big as our population is.
I didn't jot those down. Perhaps someone could just follow.
Well,
up.
how about I just make a motion, and we'll see if it gets a second, and go from there.
Victoria, which one is the $81 million project?
US 24 East widening with an interchange at Mark Sheffel, reconstructing Peterson Road. It's an important project, but I just don't see $81 million making it onto that list. Board can certainly have their own opinion on it, too.
Scott, did you have anything to add? Okay.
All right, I will give this a whirl. I will move that we recommend the board ask CDOT to include 3 additional projects onto the program development list, those being State Highway 67, Corridor Phase 1,
Which 67 project is that, just to make sure?
implement access control plan, construct widened turn lanes, raised median, sidewalk, drainage improvement, signalization. Private work has been completed. Phase 1 consists of improvements from County Road to Kelly Road.
Correct, okay, thank you.
Okay? So the 3 projects we request be added are State Highway 67 Corridor Phase 1, State Highway 85 widening, Mesa Road to Comanche, and State Highway 94 safety and capacity improvements 24 to Ellicott Highway.
I would second that.
Any further discussion? Any discussion from the audience? And just for clarification, Victoria, these are as listed with the descriptions and dollar amounts on the board priority list, correct?
Correct.
All righty. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thanks for listening, CDOT.
Item number 11, joint traffic count. This is a discussion item. Craig, are you going to start this one off?
I will. It's actually, I would call it data collection, and joint data collection instead of just traffic counts, because there's some data that we'd like to get in addition to traffic counts. Specifically, looking at some of the pavement condition data. Also, we are, with the small area forecast, we have some data that, although we can't directly share, we can access for you all. We have, what's it called now? It's the household and employment data by site not by like TAS or zone. We like, at this address, there's 17 people working here that are in this category. So we can, if like specifically for the El Paso County update or City of Colorado Springs comp plan, we have some data that we think can help you all with those efforts. Again, we'll have to do it's our, we have the license, so we'll have to do the stuff, but we can provide outputs to you. Also would like to do data collection, pavement in 2017, so what's coming, it's only a year away, which is actually a pretty tight time frame, to do, collect pavement condition data the same way we did in 2007, which is all the collectors and above in the two-county area in the MSA, not in just the metropolitan planning area. In the El Paso County, that was primarily helping you out in 2007.
And we'll also be doing our pavement condition assessment update in 2017.
So the timing seems to be right. I talked about it at the statewide MPO meeting, and so the planning department thought, yeah, that's a great idea, but I get William was like, ooh, because I think it's the contracting and some of the detail stuff is a little harder. So what we might, and because they have to do the NHS, at least portions of the NHS system, it's going to be one of those coordination, I won't say nightmares, but adventures on how to do, if we can't do it as one contract, which based on William's reaction, we might not be able to do, have CDOT go first, or at least know where CDOT's going to do it. We overlay our stuff on top of it to get the data gathered. And that is the extent of the time I've put into it right now, is figuring that out. I did a cursory look for the 2007 contract, and I could not find it to find out what the scope was. But I know that the extent was the MSA collectors and above. So.
Craig, can I maybe suggest, I think it would be good to get the people in the room together who are going to be doing that, and maybe a doodle poll, and maybe each individual jurisdiction needs to provide you, if they're interested in, with the appropriate contact person for that.
Okay.
And then maybe you do a doodle poll and at least set up a meeting. I know probably each entity has different, and most of us have done this work, so we probably have different scopes, so it might be good to maybe share those scopes in advance of that meeting, so that, that would help that discussion. I'm just trying to think aloud. I think that there is probably a meeting in order to try and get those people together who are actually doing that work to see if it makes sense to do.
That's a really good idea.
Contract.
Yep.
Almost like a workshop or something, to see if it's even.
Brainstorming session sort of deal.
So that's a
Okay.
thought.
Oh, INRIX data also. We can do data for you for INRIX if you don't have access to it with travel speeds and stuff. So.
About bike counts, are you looking for that?
We'd like bike counts, but we haven't sat down to figure out, a coordinated approach to it. So.
Alrighty, any further discussion on that item? Item number 12, member entity announcements. Anybody who has an announcement?
I'll go first. For the third month in a row, I will announce that we have made an offer and it has been accepted. But this time, I think she means it because she signed a lease. So we may be bringing in new staff on the 1st of March.
And Claire,
She put
which
down a
position?
I don't know that. It's the Planner 3 position. We still don't have a Planner 2 lined up yet, but we actually have a good interview tomorrow. We'll see. So 3 months in a row now, but this time I think we may actually, because a lease has been signed in this case.
Has it been passed?
Anybody else? Victoria.
I have brought a couple of posters, and I'd like to ask you all to help me out and put them somewhere where the public wanders in your area. We're updating our major transportation corridor plan. We're trying to get a bunch of input from a lot of people. We've got a survey online right now. That will be changing over time. Right now, we're looking for input on goals and objectives for our transportation system. So I'm going to pass these around and just ask if you could go ahead and post them up somewhere that people will see it. I have multiple ones for Shreveport, so.
This must be for you.
Yeah, and I want to point, we put ours, we put two up, there's one right here outside the door and one upstairs on our doors, so we're,
Two more you can right now.
we're good.
Here, I'll give you small ones, and then I can get you big ones.
Yeah, okay.
So thank you for the help in that, I appreciate it.
Anybody else? Any other member entity announcements? All righty. Items for future TAC meetings. Craig.
Project scores for the TIP, I guess next month, next month would be the recommendation then, for the release of the TIP. There was something else.
So I have on my list, you're going to send us those electronic draft scores.
Correct.
You're going to send us a doodle poll for
Correct.
the workshop. We owe you any additions to the project status report.
But I will make sure, I'm going to send this back out to everybody.
You'll send us a reminder.
Yeah, just with this attached, the CDOT one. And Brian, we don't have any transit related, so I know, if you guys have information you can provide, that'd be great. So just that way.
Well, I sent mine in last week.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we discussed the January 28th staff memo. I think Michael was going to forward that on to you, and hopefully you can forward that on
Yep.
to us.
The TC memo?
Yep.
Sorry,
gotcha.
thank you, the TC memo, not the staff memo.
And the TIP amendment with the rational years, instead of having stuff in 16, 19, putting that together, you should see that hopefully next month.
And then we need to get you contacts for the appropriate person for
For the-
EMA stuff.
Yep,
And then you'll be sending us out a doodle poll.
correct.
Hopefully that caught everything.
I have,
Bill.
for a future TAC meeting, just kind of a poll. I'd like to know, or hear an update from CDOT on the pavement, surface treatment or pavement maintenance plans for some of the corridors. Maybe that information's out there, I just haven't gone in the right place, but I'm getting a lot of questioning about pavement condition on 24 and 67, and what's CDOT's plans to address those.
And CDOT does have a plan for the next 10 years. I have seen it, so I know it exists.
So maybe just an update on that, unless I'm the only one that really cares about that. If so, then just send that to me. But if it could be a quick topic for a future TAC meeting, I think it would be useful to know that. But
There is a location on CDOT's website, I'll send this link too, that you can obtain all of the asset management category projects that are planned, for however many years they have planned them out. We were talking about this at Central Front Range meeting, that you can also go to the data source for CDOT on roadway conditions, Otis. You can look at current conditions. So what it doesn't tell you is what are the plans beyond those years that have actually been sort of decided upon for the asset management work. And you'd have to get right in touch with, I guess, whatever department at CDOT does a particular asset. So.
Yeah, and
primarily, pavement condition's been a hot topic lately.
Yeah, and
Craig.
Mark, last year CDOT provided a map of their next 4 years, and so Mark said that he was going to try to put together the map for the next 6 years beyond that. And I haven't followed up, but he's out. But there is a plan, a 10-year development
I
plan.
remember some of those, but there were some key things that weren't on there.
Okay.
They're starting to.
But yeah, if we'll get, Mark is more than, I've talked to him, he's more than willing. He would have been here normally, except he had something come up, so I don't think there'll be a problem getting
Well,
some
I'll leave it
information.
up to you, Craig. If you think it's
Yeah.
appropriate for a TAC meeting, otherwise
Yeah,
just
totally.
send me the information and I'll run with it from there.
Yep.
I also think that may be on the CDOT website too. I remember running across that, but we'll let Craig follow up on that one. All righty, any other items for future TAC meeting? So, to item number 4, adjournment. Do I have a motion?
I move for adjournment.
I have a second.
I'll second that. You've ever moved something?
We have several seconds.
For adjournment.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
I just love
opposed?
this meeting so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, it's the bestest people in the whole PPACG. Yeah, this is the cool group, you know, I wish they could be in this.
Yeah.
I'm not a part of that. I'm right on the edge of this.
See it? Yeah.
All the confusion,
Oh, yeah.
frustration.
Just send that to everybody.
Yeah,